All right, everybody. So we're gonna do, after some deliberation, we've decided to do Dialogos, and 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 with Sandra and Daniel just coming off of the retreat, which was a retreat involving asking a single inquiry question for 40 minutes, multiple times a day. The sense of a question is present. So we're going to do it on what is it to question is the question we're going to do a Dialogos on. And so Sandra is going to start off as the proposer. Daniel's going to be the listener and the midwife, and I'm going to be the scribe and the noticer of the dynamic.
Right. Yeah. That was fun when we did that.
Are you ready, Sandra?
Yeah, I am. I think I'd like to put the question in terms of what is questioning itself, like what is questioning?
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Sandra, tell me, what is questioning?
There is a uniqueness of questioning that feels like it's the unique domain of human beings. And it may be like I've been influenced by reading Jung's Answer to Job. I know that this is influencing my thinking now, but as I see it, that if there is omniscient God, an omniscient God, there's no need for questioning. But it feels like this omniscient God at some level needs to question, and thus the human being becomes the questioner. Now that's kind of theoretical, but what I'm aware of in myself is the ubiquity of questioning, of curiosity, of wondering why, of trying to make meaning. There are so many ways in which we articulate this urge to question, but to find out, to explore, all those things that are so ubiquitous to humanity, that underneath that there is this pushing, and it feels like it's pushing upward and outward, a movement of both wonder and surrender. And it just feels like it is so fundamental to humanity that it's overlooked for its uniqueness and its import. So that's a long way of saying it, but I think so. Okay, in summary,
Sandra,
yeah.
What you did this a lot.
Yeah.
This, and then you even said it's there's the urge to questioning. And it's kind of like it's at the center of what it means to be a human being. When you did this, and then you open up into wonder and surrender. Like what is this? What is this?
This is a connection. I mean, connection to God, the relationship, like it's all part of the same. The urge becomes this intimate connection. So the urge itself would seem to be a manifestation of this relationship, this urge for intimacy and relationship with being itself. It's not for my own sake, for my, for something to be held here. It's in order to open up. There's an opening up, right?
So questioning has to do with intimacy, with opening up.
And the urge to connect with truth and with true nature, true being, the ultimate reality. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So should I try to summarize that?
Yeah.
Or do you want to? Yeah.
No, try to.
So I would propose that questioning is our primordial nature, and represents the absolute need to connect with the reality of being.
Okay, I'll say it again. Questioning is our primordial nature and represents the absolute need to connect with the reality of being.
So that being can know itself, basically. It's sort of like, it's using the human form to connect with itself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, I have multiple questions. I will just ask maybe one. How is questioning achieving this intimacy and this binding?
Being the nature of who and what I am as a human being, unavoidably bound to question incessantly. It, in essence, binds me to the reality. It's involuntary. It feels like unavoidable and involuntary. So in that sense, it's not I am separate. To start out with, I'm this movement of being, questioning. Yeah, it's sort of like a spiraling and evolving and enlarging kind of like palpable awareness or something like that, connection with itself or awareness of itself or something like that.
So questioning involves a movement that you described before with kind of like opening,
Yeah.
like kind of like this, but also this, but now there's also a spiral involved.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So questioning has a movement intrinsically into it.
Yeah, it's a movement intrinsically. And it doesn't start here. I'm caught up in this movement. The movement pre-exists me. It's sort of like I'm caught up in this movement in my individual in my individual like embodiment and enactment of this movement. That's the individual part. I am but the whole project is a cosmic, of cosmic proportions.
So the movement is not, or the questioning is not, as we usually think about it, kind of like propositional.
Yeah.
But you in some way participate with the world.
With the wonder, of the world. Yeah. Primordial wonder of it. Yeah.
So the wonder is what attunes the question.
Yeah.
Initiates it.
Yeah. And that wonder is way beyond me. It's way bigger than me.
So questioning points to something which is bigger than you, but nonetheless houses you.
Yeah, and also causes me to move. The impetus for movement in me, in the individual.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll ask again, Sandra, what is questioning? Shall I read your initial statement?
No, I'm kind of moving on. It's sort of like questioning is God thinking or something like that,
What? Once again?
Questioning is God thinking.
Questioning is God thinking. Okay.
Yeah. And God doesn't think in abstract terms, so therefore the human being. And all that there is. The human being in this, for me, it seems takes a central role, though. It's because I am able to question and
Yeah, Max can't question.
yeah, Max is Max was very, very important as he held everything together for the retreat, guy. He did a marvelous job. Max the dog. Yeah. I'm sort of hitting a wall with this, though. I'm starting to talk about like God terms, and I kind of wonder about that. But that's where I am right now. So
Okay.
I'm kind of happy with this for the to open things up. Is that okay?
Thank you. Yeah. What's now appreciation, right?
Yeah.
So I appreciate the opening, because I would have been lost with giving a proposal. I have no idea where to start with this. I liked, so you talked in the beginning, you talked about the uniqueness. Then you talked also about the ubiquity of wandering, as kind of like wonder is kind of like attuning this whole unique domain of the human being. And then you were closing your eyes, and you were in this way, you were enacting kind of also the questioning. There was something going on with this kind of, and then maybe it has also, right, you said surrender, and this is kind of like we are offering ourselves to God or being itself. And then you talked about the intimacy, not just kind of like the human being is wandering kind of like into the heights, but you also then talk that there's a need coming from God towards the human being. So it's like in this, it's like there's a gathering, let's say a gathering of human being and the principle of God. And whatever is in this movement, it's like we cannot take ourselves out. We're inextricably and intimately as well participating in the movement. Yeah. And then you hit the wall with God. When you said questioning is God thinking. But God, I mean, God doesn't think like we are thinking in terms, concepts, and so on. So whatever questioning is, it's a specifically human act. It's something that gods or dogs, other beings cannot do. It's something very specific about the human being. Yeah, that's all what came out.
All right.
I think, Sandra, now you have one last chance to respond to this. And then I think I can go to what's it called? I forgot the names. Kind of like the forelooking, the mystery,
and where it's taking us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Sandra, you can respond one more time.
Yeah, I just felt the movement itself plus your questioning. I felt, even though you weren't verbalizing, I felt like curiosity. Oh, what is she trying to say? That kind of. So I felt that energy from you, and that seemed to. That seemed to get this spiral stuff going. So it felt more like I started out trying to like, what am I proposing? What am I proposing, sort of thing. But this, the awareness of questioning being shared by someone else really propelled that movement into a broader sense of, that why I ended up with God thinking. That was part of the process. Yeah.
It kind of, in image terms, it felt like, you were digging, and then you would say, oh, there's this element, and there's this element, and there's this element, and I just had to let you go so you can, open up all these vistas.
Get all the elements. Yeah.
And I was just noting them down.
Yeah, so this questioning can be a solitary, I suppose it can be a solitary activity, but when it's shared, there's an element of things open up ever so much more when it's shared in a particular way.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mm.
Anticipation is the next stage.
Anticipation,
I will
that's
do
it.
anticipation. Oh, yeah. Okay. So now, guys, educing, and Sandra, you describe.
Right.
But Guy, you're supposed to comment on the,
Ah, right.
right?
It felt like the thing I noticed was it seemed like you both were kind of finding your foothold, trying to find the foothold in this, right? And so it felt like you both were participating in both the lack of foothold and the trying to find a foothold, right? And then watching Daniel really mirroring a lot of your paying attention to both what you were saying, but the movements of it, right? And I thought that there was a question that Daniel asked. How is the questioning achieving this intimacy that seemed to drop it deeper?
Mhm.
Yeah. But it was also interesting just to be like you're, in some sense, you both trying to give birth to something that was actually happening, right? We were in the middle of questioning, right?
Yeah.
But so the very thing we were doing, the very thing that we were trying to answer.
Yeah, it was staring us in the face.
Yeah, I just like that.
It's really neat.
Yeah. All right, Daniel. What is it to question? That's the right. I asked the right question, right? What is it to question?
What is questioning? But
what is question? Yeah.
it was
So Daniel, what is questioning?
So when I kind of wanted to do the anticipation before, I think I wanted to say like, I mean, Sandra has kind of outlined like the highest form of questioning. But I mean, there are many questions. Like, what are we going to eat today? When will the flight arrive? Things of that nature. But nonetheless, even those seemingly day-to-day questions, I mean, they also help us getting on in life.
They help us getting on in life.
Getting on in life. That's the
questions.
They help us. I mean, they help us. I mean, maybe to bring in John's term, I mean, they also help us to realize relevance. Because I need to know, what do we eat today?
Yeah.
What do we plan for next week? What will the schedule look like for whatever? So all of these things have relevance. So what I'm kind of seeing is the movement that was suddenly arising in Sandra's speaking.
Yeah.
Wondering also. It's kind of almost as if, questions slowly. It's like the movement opens up. I almost want to say the deeper we question, but I'm not sure if depth is really the right thing. It's maybe the more we risk in questioning. I almost want to say that's the more we yield to in questioning, the more we offer our being in questioning, the more we are realizing the intimacy of the human being to being itself. Something.
Right.
The more we wage, the more intense, the more the more is at stake in some sense in our question. The more radical, as not radical in a sense, but radical is going to the heart, right? From radix, Latin is the root. The more the question is going to the root, the heart of things.
Yeah.
And then also the question becomes in a sense dangerous, because a deep question can tear things apart when we are not ready for it. It can disrupt our being. It can make us blind, maybe, or freeze us. So I want to say, questioning is the realization of I don't know, the layers or the levels of being. And the more we throw ourselves into the question, the more we really put our being into it, the deeper we can go. Something like that.
Okay.
Deeper can go.
So it's like, it's for me, what kind of phenomenologically kind of open up is like, when we really ask, I don't know, why is there something rather than nothing? That was for Heidegger, for example, that was like the question that animated metaphysics, kind of kept philosophy alive. And he also talked about the fervor of thinking or something like that. And it's like that question is like this whole movement of whole metaphysics, you know, all the great thinkers are doing it. But at the same time, when you ask, you know, oh, what will we eat tomorrow? That's like this. So it's like, it's all like, and then there are maybe questions in between. It's like, whom shall I, I don't know, where shall I live? Where shall I build my house? What person should I marry? They're kind of more in the perspectival knowing realm. They're more like this. So it's like all questions are in this moving reality in its realization. But I mean, then it's really about, you know, the level is very different, you know. But questioning is kind of keeping this movement of reality realizing. Then it's all, and then again, really depends on like the level is different. And, you know, when we do this, you know, the philosophical questioning, which is the highest questioning, that movement, you know, we have to train to participate in that movement. That tidal wave can also be very dangerous. So we need company, we need people. I think so. That's also in this practice that Sandra has. I think when you're in the Sangha, in a community, in a fellowship, then those tidal waves that come with those other questions can, I think, be bared or can be suffered better by the
Yeah.
human being.
Yeah.
And then this intimacy that Sandra was bringing up, I think then that can be achieved better.
Right. So I just want to feedback what you said. So questioning is the realization of the levels and layers of being. The more we throw ourselves into the question, the deeper it goes.
Deeper. I'm more intimate, more intimate.
Intimate.
Closer to the nearness of the principle, closer to the nearness of being itself.
So you brought up this quality of like all questions have this keeping things moving, keeping being going, if you will, right? All the way down to the like banal functioning, right? To the highest philosophical questioning.
Yeah.
And
the thing is, in this it's for my sake, and in this it's for the sake of being itself, or for the sake of the real self-realization of reality, something like that.
Yeah.
And so in between there's also a shift that we have to endure, where the heart of our self is at stake.
Yeah.
And that is something that can be, this point is, I think, is where it's getting difficult. I think the questioning becomes risky. That's kind of what I said in the beginning, where questioning can also be very harmful when we are not ready for it.
So something's at stake in this movement.
Yeah.
Right. And if this movement goes at higher levels, right, for the sake of being, existence itself, it seems to bring this at stakeness closer.
Yeah.
It is part of the movement. I'm wondering about it. I think the question is like, how does this know to do this? Right? Like, what is it about us, the questioner, right? To question, what is at stake? How does it know to question in some sense?
I want to give a Greek answer. I think what's at stake is freedom. Because right, the prisoner in the cave is always in the realm of doxa, of opinion.
Yeah.
And it's just, oh, what is this person saying? Well, what is the new trend and what's going on? Like, it's like all the questions aren't really like, I mean, it's all very superficial in a sense.
Like that, but, like Heidegger's inauthenticity.
Yeah, like that. But then what's at stake is, in some sense, owning up to the almost possibility of the human being, becoming free in the process, but that's a risky business. And that's also at the same time loving wisdom, loving that's really philosophia, when you are capable of asking deep questions.
Right. Okay. So I'll read back with you just what you said and see if there's anything you want to update here. Questioning is the realization of the levels and layers of being. The more we throw ourselves into the question, the deeper and more intimate it can be. And go.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Okay. Okay, great. So what I'm appreciating, and I think are these, I mean, it does seem like there's this sense are going on, right? It really does seem to, like, we ask questions for the sake of this going on, right? At one level, but then at like higher and higher levels, right, more is at stake, right, in this. And it's interesting too, just about what ultimately may be at stake is our freedom, right? And or freedom as such. And that in some sense, to ask the deeper questions and to take the risk is expressing a kind of love, is what I heard you say, right? By Leah Sophia, right? To be able to ask that and to ask that. I think it's like, the question is the realization of the levels and layers of being, right?
What's also at stake, I mean, it's also this kind of unity of being and thought. When
Yeah.
we just ask superficial questions like in cave, then that unity is not realized. It's kind of, it needs to be realized. Then we forget that this movement is going on even. Then we fall into the oblivion of being.
Right.
So
right.
That's also at stake, I would say. But also with that, of course, the freedom, the genuine freedom of the
yeah. Yeah. The freedom to question and the freedom that questioning can realize.
Yeah.
And so the other thing I'm appreciating is the question is the realization of the levels of and layers of being. So I hear in that kind of like, there's a quality of this kind of reckoning or a realization that like there's more going on than I understand and that I know, right? There's levels and layers and they can be hidden and they interact in ways that are beyond what I know. And in some sense, questioning is a realizing, right, of this concealment aspect, right? The ineffable aspect, these things that you can't see. And the appreciating the element of like, you know, we can live in a mode where we're not even touching on that. We're just going on without even noticing it, right? And there's a ways where that what we don't know and those deeper levels, right?
Yeah.
That even make this possible, seen, aren't obvious, right? Yet something about the question affords those levels to be seen as levels.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Or at least, the image for me is, you know, a koan also is initially very restraining and constraining, and it's but then at some point you realize it's blossoming like a flower and it opens and there's just opening and freedom. So it's like, and then you can bear, for example, that, you know, at the highest levels, maybe they're really the opposites are coinciding. It's like the absolute God and the relative, the human being, and if this is like, but you're free in this in this clash almost, I want to say, but you're realizing the freedom of this, and there can be great joy even when, you know, life and death are kind of coming together, and all of these opposites are coinciding into you, into the questioning you, and you learn to dwell in freedom despite all of it. That's kind of the highest essence, let's say, of questioning.
Yeah. Interesting. So there's something about what I'm hearing you say is that there's something about questioning that realizes it realizes all of these levels are happening in you, that you are the site between, it talked about like the finite and the infinite, right? These kind of these things that lie outside of appearance, right? Yet end up constituting us, and and that they all reside in you, that through the questioning can reveal that.
Mhm.
And then there's something about, I don't know, seeing that, knowing that, understanding that, being in that,
Yeah.
that opens up to this kind of this spacious freedom in some sense.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Maybe one last thing and then I will shut up. It's like, when Plato talked about, going out of the cave and that the light of the sun is blinding you. Then when you have a really, like a question of the highest order, I think, it's like, I don't want to hear that. Don't don't tell me that. It's too much. I can't bear it. So like a question that really comes maybe from the sun is like, it's like we have to train a lot in order so we can really fully hear it in all of its implications and things that would open up.
So in this, I have a question. So I get this sense of in this training where you go from like not quite being able to hear it to being able to hear it fully.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So it's all about realization, but this full realization, right? It takes time and training.
Yeah.
You cannot ask it.
I just got this picture of like, once I hear it, is it the kind, I got this sense of like, it'd be that kind of thing where it'd be like that, is it anamnesis? It's like, you recognize, oh my God, this thing has been operative the whole time, right? It's been the source of everything, right? And I haven't heard it until now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I one thing that comes to mind is something like, what is the meaning of life? And maybe some, when you hear it for the first time, maybe when you're 13 or 14, and maybe you're one of these thoughtful people, and I don't know what this is. I have no idea. I've never thought about this. Why do you ask me this question? Shut the I just want to have fun, something like that. But then then like a good koan, right? I mean, the Zen masters, right? The good koan, it gnaws at you, right? It's like the ball of doubt. It just starts growing and then just growing into you,
Yeah, I think what I'm hearing in that is something like, there's something about the question itself that, like, in some way, and I would imagine the act of questioning in some way, is this in between place of hearing and not hearing it.
Yeah.
There's something about, I'm kind of hearing that, in that there's this in between place of the question that, like, when you ask it, like, you can ask the question and then the answer could be like the thing that you didn't even know that you understood in asking that question. Like, somehow the question carries with it both the knowing and the not knowing of that. And I'm noticing my fingers going like this, and I'm thinking about this motion, right? This kind of play of knowing and not knowing, or something like that. I think that's what's mysterious to me here.
Yeah, thank you. Now it's
any
Sandra's
last
turn. No, nothing. We went way too long.
All right. So, anything you want to say, Sandra, about what you noticed about the dynamic?
What I noticed was it felt to me like there were intriguing threads that were showing themselves, and you were following up on them here and there. That there was no answer. There was no like conclusion. This is what, right? Which the more the intriguing threads would show themselves, and then abscond or however, the more the actual question itself was showing itself, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah. It was just really both intriguing and frustrating
Mhm.
and seductive in the way it shows itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
All of those three.
Yeah, all of that seems like part of the territory. That's
that we're in. Yeah.
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 Totally. Okay. So I'll do a proposal.
Okay. So Guy, tell us what is questioning.
Okay, so I want to look at, I think, I guess, a little bit of the phenomenology of even what is it that even has a question arise in the first place, right? For us. And it does seem, as far as I know, human beings are the only ones that ask questions, right? And it's interesting, like a question, like if I don't know anything about a dimension, I can't ask any questions about it, right? So like to ask a question presupposes some understanding of what I'm questioning to be able to question it. So there's this already there's a quality of apprehension and knowing, right? That affords also goes beyond what I know. And this motion, I feel this motion with that of like this turning in this way that in some way there's this quality of like where there's always like things appear, but there's also a constant receding, right? At the same time. And it's that receding that is somehow vital in the appearing being intelligible. Like I'm thinking about a horizon and ground, right? Like there's a sense of a horizon, like the limit, that informs, kind of gives me perspective of where I am, the ground. But also there's some sense of what's beyond the horizon that I can't see, that is somehow involved in constituting of all of it, right? In some sense. And so I want to say there's something really primordial about to question, right? I think it kind of like expresses like some mysterious sense that this a very unique sense that we can have a relationship with what we don't know. And in some sense, if we ask a question, right, to question in some sense is to bring near what I don't know, right? It's an awareness of there's something beyond my grasp, right? And a sense of the possibility of knowing it or it disclosing itself, right? And I guess there's right at that in that sense, there's a wanting to get closer with something, right? But in some sense it can be, but in some sense it's already close in some way, right? it's such a strange thing to think about. Like, yeah, want in the question is to draw closer to something that isn't quite, that I don't quite understand, or I don't see, or I don't hear. But there's a way that in order to ask the question that is somehow here. And there's something about that here, not here-ness that seems really, really like home ground to human being. Some primordial way. Like, I'm also thinking about that sense of, talking about Husserl, like about that sense of where any object that you look at, you can't ever see the back of it, right? Like, there's something that continually recedes, right, from view. You never have the full thing totally disclosed. And that receding back, I think, is that probably that sense. It's a receding that draws, right? Yeah, I'll just stop there and just kind of hear what you're hearing.
Yeah. What I'm hearing is that there's the primordial state of something being there, a given, as it were, but at the same time, from this givenness, there's also a questioning and movement into what is more, what is not showing itself, even, and in order to identify that, in order to ask that question, what is not showing itself, something has already shown itself, and we are in that space of something there, but that the other side of it not being there. So in a sense, the location in which we find ourselves as human beings, as it were, makes inevitable it somehow makes inevitable that questing or questioning.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Totally. I think that there's something about that, maybe where the intimacy I'm sensing is here, right? It's like there's something really close in that tickles, right? That wants us to, like, what's beyond the horizon, right? What's underneath that crack, right? To like all different levels, that there's something, there's the thing that's withdrawal or unknown can call to us in this way. And
it's like it's almost like the sensing the smell of a flower and being drawn to that. There's an intimacy in that contact you already have through that sense. But being drawn to the full perception or sensation, or of that.
But if you think about that, like, I mean, just look at all the scientists, like the sciences, like they, reading a bunch about biology and physics, this kind of like that, that very sense, right, of wanting to know what the hell a cell is doing and what these things are doing, and like is like literally opened up a whole domain, right, that wasn't there at some point, right? Literally, it called to us. We responded with our questions, right? And it kept revealing more. But it's not like I guess it's like that sense of moreness, right? There's something about to question is to realize an already intimacy I have with moreness, right? With what's beyond what I can see.
And the question that's coming up for me, Guy, is where do you see love in this?
Well, I think I see, I would imagine the love is it's in the arc of wanting to know, right? Like, so for example, like Teague right now, my little 20-month-old has just a literal love affair with numbers and letters. Like, he sees them everywhere. And when he sees them, he is there, right? There's a sense that they call to him, and whatever he's seeing is that he's seeing that they're so luminous. He's in love with them. Like, he's got a love affair with them. And there is this kind of quality to love of, like, when you fall in love with somebody, you're just infatuated with them. You ask them tons of questions, right? You want to know everything about them. There's this kind of, especially in the eros sense of the word, right? Wanting to consume and be consumed by something, right? Mm-hmm. So I think it's like, perhaps the question is love, right? In some way. Like, I think I heard Jonathan Peugeot say one time, they were talking about what's higher, truth or love, and Jonathan said, well, the question presupposes the truth, right? Like, you can't get the truth without love. Yeah. Right? The question itself is already a eros in some way.
Yeah. Love in action. The question is love in action. Yeah. Seems to be where you're pointing with this.
Yeah. In that kind of way too, where in order to have eros, there's got to be concealment of some kind. There's got to be something hidden, right? Just in that way that, like, it's kind of sexier to have something draped over versus a fully naked body, right? There's that quality of concealment that evokes our desire to come towards it, or it to come towards us. Yeah, so I think here, kind of saying that, I want to say that, like, to question is to realize and enact my love for being.
The question is to realize and to enact my love for being.
Yeah.
And possibly being's love for me.
Yeah. Even in that sense of where it there's a givenness, right?
Yeah.
Is the givenness.
The givenness, yeah.
Like something like the gift.
Yeah, the gift, and then
is the reciprocity.
Yeah.
Right? It's like there's like receiving, having received a gift, and the gratitude is to what is given. And part of what is given is also what is not given in that givenness, right?
Yeah.
And it seduces us in some way, right?
Yeah.
Wanting us to go deeper.
Draws us nearer. Yeah. Draws us nearer. Yeah.
And through that drawing, right, there's like, Daniel's sense of the question is the realization of the levels of being, right? That kind of, yeah, there's an erotic element to all of this.
Mhm. Yeah, wow. So can I say what I'm appreciating?
Yeah, totally.
The way in which this has moved through the three of us into this this appreciation for the way in which love shows up in the middle of this, and how and shows up in a kind of unclothed form. This is actually how love operates.
Mhm.
This is actually how it works. You know, it's almost revealed itself in its true form, in its true unromanticized form, in a sense. Yeah,
Yeah,
this is the way it is.
thank you.
Um, I'm really sort of at the point where it's sort of just like gratitude that is kind of like, that's all there is for this. I don't feel anything but the need to express that myself. Thank you both.
Cool. Anything for you, Daniel?
I have a very little tear in my eye. That's all, all I can say.
Mm.
Yeah, it was a good meeting. Thank you.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Shall we do it again next week?
All right.
Sweet.
Fantastic.
Oh,
Bye-bye.
Bye.